Okay, first of all, I'm getting sick and tired of having all this Pastor Rodney Howard-Browne prophecy. In the book of Revelation, and I think it's in chapter 20, it talks about the bride of Christ, and it talks about the city of God's people. And it says, outside are the dogs. Outside are the idol worshipers. Outside are in other words, inside the city, God's holy city, are God's people, but outside and the Lord, I had a dream, and the Lord's been telling me that Pastor Rodney has trained Eric Gonyon to be like a dog. He's trained him like his personal dog. And if you watch his videos, sometimes he'll just walk off the podium and he'll go facing the other direction. And he'll say, Eric, and Eric will jump up, take the microphone, and do his thing. And it's kind of offensive. No, it's not kind of offensive. It's totally offensive to God. And I remember when I was going there, Pastor Rodney would show up late for the service. So during praise and worship, all of a sudden there'd be a bunch of commotion off in the side where he would pull up his car. And you'd see all the armor bearers running over there, and the ushers would run over there. And a moment later, you'd see one of the armor bearers would jump in his car and park it for him. And then he'd come walking past with an entourage of people. And there'd usually be one armor bearer carrying his coat, another armor bearer carrying his jacket, his Bible. And he'd just come in with all sorts of pomp. And the Lord was telling me that that's like when somebody comes home and they have like 3 or 4 dogs. And the dogs are all... and they're all hopping up and down, and there's competition there. Like one armor bearer will be saying to the other armor bearer, I want to be the one to park his car. You parked his car last time. Okay, fine. You park his car then, but I get to carry his jacket. But I wanted to carry his jacket. I'll never get to carry his jacket. Will you carry his Bible? Okay, fine. I'll carry his Bible. You carry his jacket. And then there's another guy comes in who's like the chief armor bearer. I'm going to take his jacket, and you're going to park his car. And, oh, come on. You know, like competition among the armor bearers to see who can be the best trained dog. That's why Doeg the Edomite is named after dog. Doeg, D-O-E-G. So what I'm saying is and the Lord told me Pastor Rodney's relationship with God is like that of a dog, in that God had to train him like a dog. In other words, it's a rewards thing. It's go be a good boy and do what I tell you to do, and I'll give you a treat. And money, and basically Pastor Rodney serves God for treats. I'm just telling you the revelation God gave me. And the reason I'm saying this is last night I had a dream where I saw a lady. Oh, this is so weird. I saw a lady who was light-skinned brown. She was a black lady, but was light-skinned dark. And she had a poodle that was the same shade as her skin. And her poodle had a hairdo. Like, you know how they shave a poodle? So it's shaved most of its body, but it's got a big puffy part around its paws, around its front feet, back feet, at the end of its tail. Well, this dog had this big poofy hair. It was a poodle, and it had this poofy hair. And she had a hairdo that was similar to the dog. She looked like her dog. And I remember she was training the dog and doing this little step, and the dog would do a little step. And I had 2 dreams about a dog. So that was one dream. And then I had another dream where I was sitting on a lazy boy recliner in a house that I'd never been to. And there was a lady there and there was a dog. She had a pet dog. And I went to like, I was going to take the dog out on a walk or something. And I was trying to get the leash. And the dog had the leash on already. And she goes, oh, no, just say leash. And I said, and I was sitting in the recliner. And so I said to the dog, leash. And the dog came over and rolled over on its side in such a way that the leash was like on the ground right by my hand. so I could just take the leash. So the dog was well trained. And then what's weird about the house that I was in, I remember I stood up, and at some point I was standing on a part of the house where the floor felt really soft, and you could tell there was a break in the floor that only the carpet was. In other words, you could fall through the floor, but the carpet was there, so the carpet would hold you up. But when you stepped in this spot, it felt like you could put pressure on it, and you could tell that there's no substance underneath the carpet. There's no concrete or anything. And I told the lady, this floor, you could fall through this floor, by the way. There's something wrong with the floor right here in this little area spot here. Anyway, so the Lord's been telling me that they're the dogs, and Pastor Rodney trains Eric Gonyon and his armor bearers to be like dogs, like a dog. And God has a relationship. Pastor Rodney's relationship with God is a treats and training type of relationship. Just telling you the revelation God gave me. And then when he gets up behind the pulpit, he looks like the devil. So I mean, anybody who looks at those images of Pastor Rodney, if you still think you're going to follow that man and serve him, and that's what he wants. That's the other thing, is if you're not going to serve God or serve Pastor Rodney in his church, he will drive you out. It's been my experience that serving God was an offense to Pastor Rodney, an offense great enough to have me excommunicated from his church. And now that I start to realize all this stuff, I'm like, at the time I was just heartbroken and like terrified. Like I wanted to be one of those armor bearers. And that's why the Bible says that all these things will be set up in such a way as to even deceive the elect, if that were possible. I can't believe I wanted to be what I thought that was what I was called to do. I mean, the Lord told me to go there. It's like, oh, you want to be Pastor Rodney's pet dog and run around for treats? And when he comes to the church, be one of the armor bearers who's like begging to, like wagging my little tail and following him around whimpering. And then when another armor bearer comes along and tries to get a treat, I go, ah! And the other armor bearer's like, and then there's a pecking order, a social dominance hierarchy. That's the way it is over there. I remember seeing, I bet you Pastor Rodney has had to mediate armor bearers on many occasions where 2 armor bearers or 4 or 5 armor bearers are all in some sort of dispute over who gets to park Pastor Rodney's car and who gets to carry his jacket and who gets to, like, you carry his Bible. You carried his Bible last time. I don't want to carry. Last